The commencement hall at Ohio State's College of Engineering seats exactly 2,400 people. I counted the empty ones from the stage. Not obsessively, not for effect, just the way an electrical engineer counts things. Precisely. Automatically. Without emotion. It's what we do. We measure, we calculate, we verify. I counted because I needed somewhere to put my attention while the dean read my name and I crossed that stage by myself, while camera flashes from other people's families lit up the rows around me, while a woman 2 rows back cried into her husband's shoulder because her son had just shaken the dean's hand, and for a moment her crying was the loudest sound in the room. I counted empty seats because if I let myself think about anything else, about the 4 chairs I'd reserved in row F, each with a handwritten name card, chairs that had sat empty since the ceremony started, I would have stopped walking. My name is Patrick Holloway. I'm 38, a lead electrical engineer at a mid-sized firm in Columbus, Ohio. As of that Saturday afternoon in May, I held a master's degree in electrical systems engineering, 4 years of night school, weekend labs, and quiet sacrifice. My wife Jessica wasn't there. My daughters, Emma, 12, and Lily, 9, weren't there. My stepson Braden, 14, wasn't there. Before I go further, I want you to understand what this degree actually cost. When people hear in night school, they picture something manageable, a Tuesday evening class, maybe a weekend study group. That's not what this was. This degree cost me every Saturday morning for 4 years while my daughters played soccer and I sat in a lecture hall with a thermos of cold coffee, reviewing power grid theory. It cost me nearly every Christmas break, because finals always landed in December and full-time engineering work doesn't pause for an academic calendar. It cost me a fishing trip my father-in-law invited me on twice before he stopped asking. It cost me sleep, weekends, date nights, for years compressed into what felt like one long exhale. Jessica knew all of this. She was there when I enrolled. She was there when I told her I wanted more from my career, that I had an idea worth patenting, a modular microgrid system for rural energy distribution, and that the degree was the bridge between a sketch on a legal pad and something real. "I'm proud of you, Patrick," she'd said. "Do it." So I did. And on the day I crossed that stage to collect the degree that represented 4 years of what I believed was our shared sacrifice, my wife was 40 minutes away in Dublin, Ohio, standing in her ex-husband's backyard holding a glass of champagne while their kids watched him cut a ribbon on his new outdoor kitchen. I didn't know that yet. I found out the moment I stepped off the stage. Before I go on, if you've ever poured years into something only to learn the people closest to you weren't taking it seriously, I want to hear about it in the comments. This one's going to sit with you. Underscore 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 underscore. I have to go back 3 years, because none of this makes sense without the context. Jessica and I met at a barbecue in Westerville when I was 32 and she was 30. She'd been divorced 2 years from Todd Barfield, who ran a mid-sized commercial real estate firm in Columbus. Jessica and Todd had 2 kids, Braden and Lily. Emma was mine, from an earlier relationship. Her mother passed away when Emma was 4, so I'd already been raising her alone by the time Jessica and I met. I want to be fair to Todd, because the story needs it. He isn't a villain in the obvious sense. He's charming. Financially comfortable in the way that puts a room at ease. He takes the kids skiing, buys them things that light up their faces, Throws parties with catered food and a lawn so tidy the neighbors stop to look. He pays child support on time. On paper, he's a good divorced dad. What he isn't is consistent in the quiet ways that matter. He skips Braden's school presentations for client dinners. He cancels Lily's weekends for golf tournaments. He makes promises that dissolve, but he always comes back with something bigger and shinier, something that erases the disappointment. And kids who love a parent will take the shiny thing every time. Jessica had told me all this herself, early on, sitting at my kitchen table in Clintonville while Emma slept upstairs. She laid the pattern out clearly. Todd vanishes, Todd returns with a spectacle, the kids forgive him instantly. It's exhausting, she'd said, watching them pick glitter over substance every time. I thought she'd made peace with that difference. I thought she was immune to it. I was wrong. Here's what I didn't understand about Jessica until much later. 7 years of marriage to Todd had wired his values into her at some level below thought, the grand gesture, the event as proof of love. She'd rejected all that intellectually when she left him, but it was still down there, the way a song you haven't heard in 10 years still lives somewhere in your hands. I offered the opposite. Quiet, dependable follow-through. I showed up. I fixed what broke. I paid the bills on time. I helped Braden with his science fair project 3 years running, even though he isn't mine by blood. I was at every school event for all 3 kids, including the ones Todd missed. But I wasn't spectacular. Somewhere around year 2 of my program, buried in coursework while Jessica spent more and more time coordinating schedules with Todd, I think the contrast started working against me in ways neither of us named out loud. The invitation to Todd's housewarming came in February, a $1.2 million place in Dublin, finished basement, home theater, and an outdoor kitchen he'd apparently been saving for its own ribbon cutting. The house had closed 6 months earlier. The party was set for May. My graduation weekend. We can do both, Jessica said, showing me the invite. Your ceremony's at 2. His thing starts at 5. It works. I should have pushed back right there. I should have said, this is 4 years of my life, this is not something we split an afternoon with. But I didn't, because I still believed, back then, that if you just keep doing the right thing long enough, people eventually notice without needing to be told. Okay, I said instead. As long as everyone's there when I walk. She kissed my cheek. We'll be in the front row. I should have gotten that in writing. I should have built in redundancy the way I build it into every system I design, a backup, a failsafe, something to point to when the primary fails. I didn't. I just believed her. The week before graduation, Todd called Jessica. I wasn't in the room, but I pieced it together later from her and from something Braden let slip. The outdoor kitchen install had been delayed, so the ribbon cutting moved to noon. He wanted the kids there early for a full family day. He'd rented a bounce house and hired a DJ. A bounce house. A DJ. I was in my home office finishing my final project when Jessica appeared in the doorway. Todd's thing moved earlier, she said. Earlier how? Noon. He wants them there by noon. My ceremony's at 2. I know. A pause. But the kids are so excited about the new house. I looked up and saw something on her face I couldn't name then but can now. The look of someone who's already decided and is just hunting for permission not to feel bad about it. Jessica. My graduation is in 1 week. 4 years of work. This is the thing, for our family. I know it is. And I'm proud of you. But Lily's been talking about that outdoor kitchen for months, and Todd got a DJ, and I'm getting a master's degree. She didn't answer that. Will you be there? I asked. Of course, she said, the way people say of course when what they mean is probably, or I'll try, or let's see how the day goes. I went back to my slides. I told myself she'd come. I told myself 4 years of showing up had earned me 2 hours. I was wrong. Underscore 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 underscore. Saturday, May 11th, ceremony at 2 p.m. I got to the venue at 12:45, found my gown, pinned on my name card, texted Jessica, heading in. Row F, seats 3 to 6 reserved. Love you. We're on our way. So proud of you. 2 exclamation points, the kind of enthusiasm that reads as excitement from a distance and, looking back, as guilt up close. I lined up with the other graduate students. The guy next to me, Theo, from the power systems track, had his whole extended family in the building. I could hear his mother crying from the staging area. First in my family with a master's, he said, straightening his cap. Same, I said. We shook hands. Strangers sharing a moment. At 1:58 I texted again, about to start. You hear? Nothing. At 2:07, walking in, row F, now. Nothing. I walked in behind Theo, in front of a woman who kept stepping on my gown and apologizing. The seats blurred by in scarlet and gray, families pressed shoulder to shoulder, everyone craning to spot their person. Row F, empty. All 4 seats. My handwritten name card still sitting on the cushions. I kept walking. The ceremony ran 52 minutes. I checked my watch 3 times. There was a video tribute, a student speaker named Priya with a quantum computing thesis and 12 people in the crowd holding a banner with her name on it. When the dean called mine, I stood, crossed the stage, shook his hand, took the diploma case, smiled for the photo the way you're supposed to. Row F was still empty. I sat back down, opened the case, looked at the paper inside. Master of Science in Electrical Systems Engineering. Patrick Daniel Holloway. 4 years. I closed it. Outside afterward, still in my gown, family swarmed the sidewalk. Theo's mother had stopped crying and started taking pictures. Some father I didn't know lifted his son off the ground in a hug that looked like it could crack a rib. My phone buzzed. One text, we need to talk. Call me. Urgent. Then I saw the missed calls. 9, then more after the ceremony ended. By the time I was standing on that sidewalk, the count was 95. I stood there in my gown, diploma under my arm, watching Theo's mother kiss his cheek for maybe the 14th time, staring at the number 95 on my screen. Something shifted in my chest, not rage, not grief. Something quieter and more deliberate than either. I didn't call back right away. I went to Murphy's on North High Street, a bar I'd been going to since my first semester. Sat down in my gown, ordered a burger and a beer, and thought through my next move with the same precision I bring to any system I design. Because here's what I understood, alone at that bar. This wasn't an accident. This was the slow, invisible accumulation of decisions, hers, Todd's, the kids', in which my graduation had simply never carried the weight his housewarming did. I finished my burger. I read my diploma again. I let the 95 calls sit, and I started planning. I called her back at 6:47. Patrick. She picked up on the first ring, voice hollow, like she'd been crying long enough to run dry. Where are you? I asked. At Todd's. Since noon. I tried calling, but your phone was off and then time just. What time did you leave the house? A pause. 11. The ceremony was at 2. Dublin's 22 minutes from the arena. I know, Patrick. So between 11 and 2, you had 3 hours, and you chose not to use them. She started crying, real, but also, if you know someone long enough, a little managed. Jessica cried with total sincerity and also, somehow, with an eye on how I'd receive it. The kids were having such a good time, she said. I kept thinking we'd leave in a few more minutes. Then Todd fired up the grill and nobody wanted to go and you didn't want to go either. Silence. Come home, I said. We'll talk when you're here. Are you angry? I thought about the empty seats, the name cards, Theo's mother and her banner, 95 missed calls, the bartender who'd asked if I was celebrating something. I'm not angry, I said, and I meant it. Come home. Underscore 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 underscore. Underscore 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 underscore. Underscore 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 underscore. Underscore 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 underscore. She got in at 8:15 with all 3 kids, sunburned and fed and glowing with the particular happiness of children who've had an unexpectedly perfect day. Emma reached me first, 12 years old, sharp in the way girls raised without a mother often are, the kind who notices things before anyone points them out. Dad. She hugged me hard around the waist. I wanted to be there. Mom said we were going, but then. I know, Em. It's okay. It wasn't. But she wasn't the problem. Brayden and Lily trailed in behind her, sheepish the way kids are when they sense something's wrong without fully understanding their part in it. Congrats, Patrick, Brayden said, 14, working hard at being a man. I appreciated the effort. Thanks, bud. Jessica stood in the doorway last, beautiful and exhausted in the specific way guilty people get exhausted, holding a takeout bag from somewhere near Todd's place. I sent the kids up to shower and change. Then I sat across from her at the kitchen table, the one I'd built from a kit 2 years earlier on a Saturday I was supposed to be studying, because Lily had asked for something bigger for family dinners. Tell me everything, I said. From 11 this morning. All of it. It was worse than I'd guessed. She'd known, standing in Todd's driveway at 11, that leaving that late made the ceremony functionally impossible, parking, seating, the drive itself. Even a clean run would have landed her mid-processional at best. She'd made a calculation and it had come out wrong. I kept thinking I'd pull them away, she said. But Todd always had something else lined up. The food, the DJ, the neighbor kids showing up. Did Todd know it was my graduation? A longer pause. I mentioned it. And? She looked at her hands. He said he was sorry, but the deposits were already paid, and the kids were so excited, and that you'd understand. I let that sit. I have something to show you, I said. I brought back 2 folders. The first held the paperwork for a patent I'd filed 6 weeks earlier, the microgrid system I'd been building alongside my coursework, the thing that had kept me up on the nights everything else felt pointless. I'd been in talks for months with Aldrich Energy Solutions out of Cincinnati about licensing it. The second folder, put together that afternoon at the bar, held the paperwork for a separate bank account I'd opened 3 months prior, not hidden, but separate. The kind of quiet preparation a man makes when he isn't sure where his marriage is heading but isn't ready to say so out loud. I laid both on the table. This is the patent. Filed. Aldrich is offering a license, terms still being worked out, but the first-year estimate is somewhere between $180,000 and $250,000. Her expression shifted, the guilt folding into something more complicated. And this, I said, opening the second folder, is where I stand financially, separate from our joint accounts. The degree's done. The patent's filed. And I've spent the last few months thinking about what I actually want my life to look like, because I've been so busy trying to build something for this family that I never asked whether we were building toward the same thing. Patrick, I'm not. I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer honestly. If Todd's party had landed on any other day, if there'd been no conflict at all, would today have gone differently? Or is the real problem that somewhere along the way, what I'm doing started to matter less to you than what he's doing? The silence answered for her. She cried again, but this time it read as real grief, not management. She covered her face with both hands. I don't know how it happened, she said finally. I love you. You know I do. But you've been gone 4 years, Patrick. Not physically, I know you were here, but always somewhere else. Studying, at the lab, on calls with those engineers in Cincinnati. And Todd shows up loud. He makes an event of it. The kids respond to that. And she stopped. You respond to it too, I said. She didn't deny it. I'm going to stay at my brother's for a few days, I said. Not because I'm done. Because I need to think, and I can't do that clearly in a house where I'm managing everyone's feelings about this. Please don't go. I'm not leaving. I'm pausing. I packed a bag, hugged Emma, told Braden and Lily I loved them, and drove to my brother Neil's house in Bexley. Neil's 42, works in logistics, and has the rare gift of not asking questions until you're ready to answer them. He put a cold beer in front of me, turned on a ball game, and left me alone. Here's what I understood by the end of that first night: graduation day was a symptom, not the disease. The disease had been growing for years, invisible the way a wiring fault stays invisible right up until something catches fire. It was in the unconscious warmth Jessica used when she talked about Todd, warmth she'd slowly stopped using with me. It was in the way the kids mentioned his name like a weather system, inevitable, impressive, something you plan around. It was in the way my accomplishments, the degree, the patent, the years of grinding, quiet effort, had faded into background noise while his spectacles stayed front and center. I'd been building. He'd been performing. And in a house with 3 kids learning what to value by watching the adults around them, the performer had won. I didn't blame the kids. I didn't even fully blame Jessica. I blamed the system, the invisible architecture of values a family builds over time, where steady love starts to look unremarkable, and the man who rents the bounce house starts to outweigh the man at the kitchen table at midnight, working on something real. But here's the thing about being an engineer in a moment of clarity: you don't just find the failure point. You redesign the system. And I was done being background noise. Underscore 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 underscore. Monday morning, 2 days after graduation, I called Jeffrey Aldrich in Cincinnati. Patrick, he said. Congratulations on the degree. Big weekend. It was, I said. I want to move on the licensing agreement. The terms from last month, I want to sign and move forward. A beat of pleased surprise. That's great news. Legal will send the revised terms today. Can you make it to Cincinnati Thursday? I'll be there. I'd been slow-walking that deal for months, unsure what a licensing agreement meant for my family's finances during a period of transition. I wasn't uncertain anymore. Thursday, I drove to Aldrich's offices on East 4th Street, overlooking the river, and signed the framework of the biggest professional milestone of my life, a 5-year license on the microgrid patent, Aldrich holding exclusive commercial rights for the first 3. Signing bonus, $85,000, landing within 30 days. First-year fees would bring the total past $210,000. Jeffrey shook my hand across a conference table under floor-to-ceiling windows. You've built something genuinely important, Patrick. Rural electrification in this country is 30 years behind where it should be. This changes that. I thought about the legal pad where it all started, a Tuesday night in our living room, Jessica watching TV, the kids already asleep. A legal pad, a mechanical pencil, for years. Thank you, I said. It took a while. Worth it, he said. I drove back to Columbus. I didn't call Jessica. I called Emma. Dad, she said immediately. Are you coming home soon? How are you doing? Mom's been quiet, she said carefully. She keeps checking her phone. Tell me something good. She thought about it. I got an A on my circuits project. I smiled so wide it felt like my face would split. Of course you did. I was thinking about you when I did it. I'll be home this weekend, I said. We'll celebrate. Underscore 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 underscore. I came home Saturday, not loudly, no declarations, no ultimatums. Same way I'd done everything for 4 years, quietly, with a plan. I sat Jessica down and put it all on the table. Not the anger that had burned off over 4 days at Neil's. Just the truth. I told her I understood the pull of Todd's world, the way it rewarded the kids with something visible and immediate. I told her I understood that 4 years of watching me vanish into coursework had left her running the marriage mostly alone. Then I told her what had changed. The degrees finished. The patents signed. I'm going to have more time, more presence, more resources than I've had this whole relationship. The question is whether you want to be here for it. She looked at me a long time. I want to be here. I need something from you. Not an apology. I need you to see me the way you did when you first explained the difference between substance and glitter to me. I need you to choose substance. Every time. I know, she said quietly. I know I didn't. I'm sorry. I'm not asking for sorry. I'm asking you to decide. She took my hand across the table. I decide you, she said. I always did. I just got lost. I let her hand stay there before I squeezed it. Then we rebuild, I said. Underscore 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 underscore. Underscore 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 underscore. Here's what came after. and I want to be clear about it, because people expect this part to look one way, and it looks another. Revenge, as I understand it, isn't a confrontation. It isn't a scene. It isn't calling Todd and telling him what he cost me, or making Jessica choose publicly, or humiliating anyone at a dinner table. Revenge, to an engineer, is results. 5 months after graduation, Aldrich presented my microgrid system at the National Rural Electrification Conference in Nashville. My name was on the presentation. My patent got cited in 3 papers that quarter. Jeffrey's keynote called it the most viable distributed rural power solution he'd seen in 20 years in the industry. The Columbus Dispatch ran a small piece on local innovators. I was in it. My own firm, where I'd been a lead engineer for 6 years without much fanfare, offered me a VP role after the coverage. I negotiated a part-time consulting arrangement instead, so I could work on a second patent while keeping steady income. Todd, meanwhile, heavily leveraged in commercial real estate, ran straight into the interest rate environment that gutted leveraged commercial portfolios in 2024. By December he'd sold the Dublin house. The outdoor kitchen went with it. I don't know where he landed, and I didn't ask. Braden mentioned it one evening while we worked on a school project at the kitchen table. The way teenagers bring up things they're still processing, not quite looking at you. Dad sold the house, he said. He's in an apartment in Worthington now. The DJ was cool, though, I said. He was quiet for a second. I wish I'd been at your graduation. I looked at my stepson, 14, trying to figure out what kind of man to become. Aldrich has a lab tour coming up in March, I said. Some engineering students are coming through. Want to join? His face did something I recognized from Emma, that uncomplicated happiness kids show when someone opens a door into a world they didn't know was there for them. Yeah, he said. I really do. Underscore 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 underscore. Emma came with me to Cincinnati that March. So did Lily. So did Braden. Jessica too, thermos of coffee in hand, holding mine in the parking lot while we waited for the doors to open. A young engineer walked the kids through the demo installation, a single hub powering 12 rural homes off solar input and stored battery capacity, the fail-safes, the redundancy, how the design absorbed grid fluctuations and weather swings. Who invented this? Lily asked. He pointed at me. She turned and looked at me the way 9-year-olds do when they're recalibrating who someone is. That's your dad, the engineer said. I know who he is, Lily said. I'm just seeing him differently. I don't have kids of my own by blood. Emma came to me through loss, Braden and Lily through marriage, but in 20 years of working life, in 4 years of grad school, in every hour at a lab bench or a kitchen table with a mechanical pencil, I've never felt more seen than I did in that lab, watching a 9-year-old recalibrate in real time in front of something I'd built from nothing. Underscore 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 underscore. Jessica and I went to counseling. I want to say that plainly, because people romanticize the idea that a marriage survives a rupture through one big moment, one conversation that fixes everything. That's not how it works. What works is the same thing that works in electrical design: slow, methodical diagnosis of every failure point, patient rebuilding, and testing the system until it holds. Our counselor, Dr. Andrea Stiles, helped Jessica put words to something she'd never said to me directly: that across 4 years of grad school she'd felt invisible, that my ambition, which she admired, had also swallowed the space in our marriage where she used to feel seen. That Todd's world, shallow as it was, gave her something that felt like attention. That was hard to hear. I'd believed I was doing everything for my family. The truth was more complicated. I'd been doing everything for a version of my family that lived mostly in my head, while the real one sat at home feeling alone. I didn't like sitting with that. But I did. And she sat with her own truth, that she'd made a decision on graduation day she couldn't undo, and that repairing this belonged to both of us, not just me. We're still doing that work. Some weeks are easier than others. Underscore 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 underscore. In February, Aldrich offered me something I hadn't seen coming: Director of Technology Partnerships, full-time, managing deployment relationships for my patent and several others they'd licensed. Nearly double my old salary. Official recognition of 4 years I'd spent earning it. I said yes on a Friday afternoon and drove home. Emma was in the yard throwing a lacrosse ball against the fence, the way she does when she's waiting on something. "How'd it go?" she called. "Got the job." She dropped the stick and ran across the yard, hugging me hard around the waist the same way she had after graduation, the way kids hug when they haven't yet learned to guard their hope. "Are you happy?" she asked. I thought about the empty seats in row F, the 95 missed calls, the burger I ate alone at a bar in my gown while a bartender asked what I was celebrating. I thought about Lily in that Cincinnati lab saying, "I'm just seeing him differently." I thought about 4 years of legal pads and cold coffee and Saturday mornings in lecture halls, everything I built without knowing yet if it would come to anything. "Yeah," I said. "I really am." Underscore 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 underscore. Here's what I want to leave you with, because I've thought a long time about how to say it. There's a version of this story where I show up at Todd's housewarming and confront him. A version with a screaming match at the kitchen table that ends with someone driving off for good. A version where the kids get forced to pick sides and everyone loses. I didn't live that version. I lived the one where a man takes 4 days at his brother's and a burger at a bar on North High Street to get clear about who he is, what he's built, and what he refuses to lose, including, eventually, his marriage, on terms that required honesty from both of us. The revenge wasn't against Todd. He built a beautiful house and then lost it. That happened on its own, independent of me. I didn't cause it, and I didn't celebrate it. The real revenge was against the version of myself who believed that doing the right thing quietly, indefinitely, without ever asking to be seen, was a sustainable way to live. That version of Patrick Holloway walked across a stage alone, ate a burger in his gown, and spent 4 days thinking it through. The version that came out the other side signed a patent license, Director of Technology Partnerships, and stood in a Cincinnati lab while a 9-year-old decided to see him differently. Those aren't the same man. My name is Patrick Holloway. I'm 38 years old. I'm a lead electrical engineer, a patent holder, and director of technology partnerships at Aldrich Energy Solutions in Columbus, Ohio. Nobody from my family came to my graduation. What I built afterward changed everything.